The girl lent me her phone, and I dialed my home number. It rang. No answer. I tried again an hour later. Still nothing. Where was Rodney? Day 2. I walked to the downtown police station. The officer took my statement with the help of a translator. Passport stolen, phone stolen, wallet stolen. By your son? He repeated, eyebrows raised. Yes, I said. He lives in my house. I let him stay there. And you believe this was planned? The flight change, the standby upgrade, everything was planned. He typed slowly, then handed me the printed report, stamped and official. His eyes said what his words didn't, that he was sorry, but it wouldn't bring anything back. That night, lying on the hostel bunk, I stared at the spinning ceiling fan, and a memory surfaced when I had pushed aside. Last month, Rodney had been unusually attentive, visiting often, helping with errands. Then, one afternoon, Dad, we should update your medical directive, just in case something happens. It had seemed harmless. A simple form on his laptop. I'd signed it electronically, trusting him completely. I never saw a printed copy, never asked for one. And now, realization struck like a bucket of ice water. That wasn't a medical directive. I sat up suddenly, startling the German backpacker in the bunk across from me. What I signed? A power of attorney? A property transfer? My mind raced through the possibilities, each worse than the last. Day 3. I walked the streets of Puerto Vallarta, not like a tourist this time, but like a man on a mission. My mind worked the problem the same way I used to work business deals. What does Rodney want? The house. What does he think? That I'm trapped here. What's his timeline? A week, maybe more, before he expects me home. That was my advantage. Surprise. At noon, Patricia handed me the emergency passport, thin, temporary, but valid. She also gave me an envelope with $600 in cash from the assistance fund. Pay it back when you can, she said. I found an internet cafe nearby and sat down at a computer. My plan was simple, and this time it would be me setting the trap. The businessman in me, the one that had slept quietly through the years since retirement, was wide awake again. Step 1, identification. Step 2, money. Step 3, home. I made the checklist in my head the same way I used to before board meetings. At an internet cafe, $1 for 30 minutes. I booked a flight back to Seattle for the next morning. $420, one way. Rodney's flight had gone through Denver. He'd mentioned meetings there, probably a few days at most. I'd be home 3 days before him. Back at the hostel, I started my own plan. Document everything. Change the locks. Find a paper I signed. Get a lawyer. Make Rodney explain himself face to face. Not revenge, justice. There's a difference. The German girl in the bunk above me looked down and asked if I was okay. I was staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. Maybe he doesn't want to know, she said softly, meaning Rodney not answering my calls. That's what I'm counting on, I replied. He thinks I'm stuck here. He's wrong. The next morning, I boarded the flight to Seattle, economy, middle seat. A mother with a sleeping baby sat on one side, a teenager with headphones on the other. My emergency passport rested safely in my shirt pocket. I had $165 tucked inside my sock. As the plane lifted off the runway, Puerto Vallarta grew smaller beneath the clouds. The beaches, the hotels, the airport where everything had changed. I didn't look back. My mind was already in Seattle, already in my front door, already picturing the look on Rodney's face when he found me there waiting. The flight was 3 hours and 40 minutes. I asked for water free. Every dollar mattered now. When the plane landed, the familiar sound of wheels hitting the runway sent a jolt through me. I looked out the window. Rain clouds, evergreens, the skyline of home. But home wasn't a refuge anymore. It was a battlefield. I waited until most passengers had left before standing. I had time. Rodney didn't know I was coming. My rideshare driver was a young woman with a Seahawks air freshener hanging from her mirror. She chatted at first, then sensed I wasn't in the mood and fell silent. 47 minutes later, we pulled up in front of my house. A pale blue Craftsman with white trim, the porch I'd rebuilt 5 years ago, the garden ready for spring. $850,000 worth of real estate. My life's work, my security. Rodney had lived there rent-free for 2 years. Now he wanted to take it all. I paid the $47 fare, added a $3 tip, measured generosity, and stepped out with my nearly empty backpack. I stood there on the sidewalk, looking at my own home as if seeing it for the first time. Alton. I turned to see Daniel Kowalski, my neighbor, walking toward me. His white hair caught the light, and his reading glasses were perched on his forehead. He'd been my neighbor for 12 years, a retired history teacher, sharp and observant. "You're back early," he said, his expression shifting between surprise and concern. "Where's Rodney? Is everything all right?" His questions came fast. Daniel had always been perceptive. I decided quickly. An observant neighbor was as good as a friend. "They came back early," I said carefully. "Different flight. I had some delays." "Different flight?" His brows lifted. "That's odd for a family vacation." "Tell me," I asked. "What did you see when they got home?" We stood on the grass between our driveways. Daniel adjusted his glasses. "It was early, maybe 6:30. 3 days before you were supposed to return. They were loading boxes, bags, more than you'd expect from a trip." I waved, but Rodney didn't wave back. He seemed focused, intense, careful, premeditated. I nodded slowly. "Thank you, Daniel. And if Rodney comes by while I'm out, don't tell him you saw me." Daniel's gaze met mine, understanding dawning. "I haven't seen you," he said. "You're still in Mexico, as far as I know." "Exactly." The fake rock under the rhododendrons still hid my spare key, the same one my late wife had planted 20 years ago. My fingers found it instinctively. The security code was unchanged. That meant Rodney wasn't expecting interference. Inside, the air was stale, closed, unbreathed. I moved through the rooms quickly. Living room, the grandfather clock gone. Dining room, silverware missing from the cabinet, gaps like missing teeth. Bedroom, my late wife's jewelry box, empty. Study, my Omega watch gone. My vintage Leica camera, missing. Each small theft told a story, and together, they painted the truth. Rodney hadn't just abandoned me. He had robbed me. Then I saw it, a manila folder placed neatly on my desk in the home office. Inside, legal documents, official seals, notary stamps. The title read Deed of Gift. I scanned the page. Property address, mine. Grantor, Alton Evans. Grantee, Rodney Evans. Consideration, love and affection. Date, 4 weeks ago. My signature, notarized, witnessed. My hands didn't tremble. They should have. But my anger wasn't fiery anymore. It was frozen, solid, sharp, and deadly calm. I stepped outside. Daniel was still nearby, watering his plants, pretending not to watch. "Can I borrow your phone?" I asked. He handed it over without hesitation. I photographed everything. Every missing space, every shelf, the empty jewelry box, the open watch case, and most importantly, the deed of gift. Evidence. Documentation. My son left me in a foreign country, but when he returned home, he couldn't believe his eyes. My son left me alone at an airport in a foreign country, without money, without documents, and without hope. He wanted to get rid of me once and for all, so he could take my house for himself. But when he opened the door to that house, I was already standing there, smiling. "Oh, you're back," I said. "I have a surprise for you." And that surprise ruined his life. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and comment what time it is where you are right now. I had just returned from the restroom when I noticed them, Rodney and Cora, sitting close together, whispering like conspirators. The moment they saw me, they sprang apart, as if I had caught them doing something shameful. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I sat back down at gate 17. Rodney didn't look up from his phone. "Fine, just tired from the trip." Cora smiled too brightly. "We're just ready to get home. Can't wait to sleep in our own bed." We still had about 90 minutes before our flight to Seattle. It had been a good week in Porto. Beaches, dinners, the kind of family time I thought we'd lost after Rodney's mother passed away. But that morning, something fell off. The air between us was thick, uneasy. Rodney kept scrolling through his phone without really looking at it. Cora kept folding and unfolding her boarding pass. Neither of them met my eyes. Then, about 20 minutes later, Rodney stood abruptly. "Dad, we need some water and snacks for the flight. You know what we like. Can you grab them?" "Sure," I said, standing up. We can all go. He shook his head quickly. No, you go. I need to make a work call, and Cora has to use the restroom. He pressed a $20 bill into my hand. Here, this should cover it. His voice was firm, almost too firm. I hesitated, sensing something strange, but forced a smile. All right, be right back. The airport shop was small, tucked between a currency exchange and a coffee stand. I took my time, choosing what they liked. Rodney's favorite imported water with a blue label, Cora's Trail mix with cranberries, a protein bar for myself. The line moved slowly. A family ahead of me struggled with 2 crying kids and a stroller. 12, maybe 14 minutes passed before I finally paid. When I returned to gate 17, the seats where we'd been sitting were empty. Completely empty. No backpacks. No jackets. No sign of them at all. The plastic bag slipped from my fingers. My heart started pounding as I tore open my backpack. My spare shirt was there, my toiletry bag too, but my passport pocket was empty. My phone, wallet, everything gone. I searched again and again, but it was useless. They were gone. I stumbled to the gate counter, breathless. The couple sitting in seats 14 and 15. Did you see where they went? The young woman behind the desk looked up from her screen. Evan's party? They took an earlier flight to Denver. Standby upgrades. Departed about 20 minutes ago. Denver. I repeated. No, we were flying to Seattle. That's my son. She frowned sympathetically. I'm sorry, sir. Their boarding passes were for Denver. The room tilted. My knees felt weak. Denver, not Seattle. They'd changed their flight. They'd left me here. I sat back down, pulled the $20 bill from my pocket, the only money I had left. He gave me $20 and took everything else. I made my way to airport security, trembling. My son took my passport, I told the officer behind the desk. My phone, my wallet, everything. He just left me here. She looked at me with kind, tired eyes. Do you have any identification? Anything at all to prove who you are? I shook my head. Nothing. Just this. I held up the $20 bill and the bag of bottled water. She filled out a form, asked me questions, names, addresses, flight numbers, then handed me a paper with a case number and told me to contact the U.S. consular agency downtown. Her sympathy was real, but it didn't change anything. I wandered through the terminal, past families boarding planes, everyone together, everyone belonging somewhere. My reflection in the glass showed a man alone, one shoulder carrying an empty backpack, the other holding a bag of water bottles. Behind me, planes roared down the runway, climbing into the bright blue sky. One of them carried my son. I stood there watching, the noise fading into silence, as something hard and cold settled where trust used to live. I took a deep breath, then another. Stranded? Yes. Helpless? No, because this story wasn't over yet. The businessman in me, the one who'd been dormant since retirement, woke up that day. First, identification. Second, money. Third, home. I built a mental checklist, just like I used it before board meetings. The information desk directed me to the U.S. consular agency, about a 20-minute walk through busy streets lined with souvenir stalls and fruit vendors. Tourists haggled over silver jewelry, while locals sold coconuts and mangoes from wooden carts. The consulate was small but efficient, the American flag on one wall, photos of the president and diplomats on the other. A woman at the front desk looked up as I entered. Tell me what happened, Mr. Evans. Start from the beginning. Her name was Patricia Henderson. Calm, professional. I sat across from her and explained everything. The vacation, the airport, the empty seats. My son left me there, I said quietly. He took my passport, my phone, my wallet, everything. She listened carefully, pen poised over her form. My son did this, I repeated. He's been living in my house rent-free for 2 years. I think he wants to keep it. Something changed in her face. The professional distance faded. She set her pen down. We can issue you an emergency passport, she said. It takes a minimum of 3 business days. You'll need a police report and a payment of $135. I emptied my pockets on her desk. $8 in change, a few Mexican coins, a breakfast receipt from 3 days ago, and the $20 bill Rodney had given me before abandoning me. Patricia left for a few minutes and came back with a stack of papers and a small smile. Payment deferred until you're home, she said. We have an emergency assistance fund to help travelers like you. You'll pay it back later. Then she looked me straight in the eye. You're not broken, Mr. Evans. You're angry. And angry people find their way home. Outside the consulate, I sat on a bench, forms in hand, trying to process everything. That's when a familiar face appeared. Maria, from the airport information desk. You have family to call? She asked gently. My son was my family, I said. I have neighbors, but no way to reach them. She nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes the people closest to us are the furthest away, she said softly. My father, similar story. Different details, same betrayal. How did it end for him? I asked. She smiled faintly. He survived. Built something new. You will too. She offered to drive me to a small hostel nearby. $15 a night, clean and safe. I tried to give her $2 for gas, but she refused. My father was abandoned once too, she said. Some betrayals cut deeper than others. The hostel room smelled faintly of salt air and laundry detergent. 6 bunk beds lined the walls. I took the bottom bunk in the corner. My roommates, 2 German backpackers and a construction worker from Guadalajara, shared their dinner with me. Bread, cheese, fruit. When I handed the phone back, he said quietly, Alton, if there's trouble. There's trouble, I said, but I'm handling it. Inside again, I picked up the landline. It still worked. I called my bank. This is Alton Evans, I said. Account ending in 7743. I need to check for unusual activity. Security questions followed. Mother's maiden name, first car, childhood street. Everything looks normal, sir, the representative said. Last transaction was 4 weeks ago. Utility payment. No changes to authorized users or beneficiaries. A small relief. Rodney had stolen the house and valuables, but not the money. Maybe he hadn't had time yet. That gave me one advantage. Resources. I sat at my desk, staring at the deed. The memory came flooding back. 1 month ago, Tuesday, Rodney had brought sandwiches from my favorite deli. We ate, talked, laughed. Then he said, Dad, I updated some legal documents for you. Medical directive, living will, just routine stuff. You should sign. His laptop was open. The document ready. Signature pad connected. I signed without thinking, trusting him completely. That Tuesday, over a sandwich, I lost everything. I stood in the darkening living room, looking at my reflection in the window. You thought I'd be stranded, I said quietly. You thought I'd be gone long enough to take everything. My reflection stared back, calm and cold. You thought wrong. Morning sunlight cut across the kitchen table, landing on the list I'd made the night before. Some items crossed off, others circled twice. At the top, lawyer. I'd spent the night using Daniel's laptop to research real estate attorneys downtown. One name appeared again and again, Margaret Shun, successful in property disputes. At exactly 8 a.m., I called her office. A polite, professional voice answered. Shun Law Associates, how may I help you? I need a consultation, I said. It's urgent. She began suggesting dates for next week. My son stole my house. I interrupted. I need help today. I have the document. I need help today. There was a pause on the line. Then a new voice came on. Calm, professional, direct. This is Margaret Shun. Tell me what happened. I gave her the short version, sticking to the essentials. She listened without interrupting, then asked 3 questions. Is the document notarized? Yes. Is your signature genuine? Yes. Did you know what you were signing? No. Come in at 11, she said. Bring the document and any identification you have. I prepared for that meeting like I was preparing for a trial. Everything went into a manila folder. The deed of gift, my emergency passport, bank statements, photos of the stolen items, and a written statement from Daniel about seeing Rodney load boxes into the car. Everything was organized chronologically. Then I dressed carefully, pressed shirt, clean slacks, jacket. Presentation mattered. People believe the man who looks in control. Her office was downtown, 20th floor, with a view of Puget Sound. Margaret Shun was smaller than I'd imagined, maybe in her early 50s. Sharp eyes, precise movements. Her office smelled faintly of paper and printer toner, walls lined with law books. She gestured toward a leather chair across from her desk. worn smooth by years of clients with problems like mine. I set the deed of gift in front of her like it was evidence. She slid on reading glasses and studied it silently, pen moving fast across a notepad. After 5 minutes, she looked up. "This is a properly executed deed of gift," she said. "The notary seal is legitimate. The language is standard. Your signature appears genuine." "Is it?" I nodded. "Then legally, as of the date on this document, your son owns your house." The words landed like a punch to the chest. "However," she continued, and that single word felt like air returning to my lungs, "if you can prove you were deceived about the nature of the document, we can argue fraud." She turned her monitor toward me. The deed filled the screen. "Walk me through the signing. What exactly did your son say?" "He told me it was an update to my medical directives," I said. "Power of attorney, living will, standard paperwork." It made sense. "I'm 63. Did you read it before signing?" It was on his laptop screen. Small text. He scrolled through quickly, said it was standard legal language. "And you never received a copy?" "Never. I assumed he filed it somewhere for emergencies." Her pen moved faster. "That's our angle. Misrepresentation of document contents. Concealment of the true purpose." She copied and scanned everything, enlarging the notary section on her screen. "This was deliberate," she said quietly. "Planned, executed cleanly. I'll need to interview the notary." Then she looked back at me. "This will cost money. Retainer, court fees, maybe expert witnesses. Are you prepared for that?" "I sold my business 3 years ago," I replied. "I have resources. This is worth every dollar." "Retainer is $5,000, she said. "If it goes to trial, 20 to 40,000 more, maybe higher if your son fights back." "I'll write the check." "What are my odds?" "If we can prove deception, 60-40 in your favor," she said. "Maybe better, considering he tried to abandon you abroad. But fraud is hard to prove." "I'm not walking away from my house." "I didn't think you were," she said. "That's why I clear my schedule." The next stop was the police station, East Precinct. Harsh fluorescent lights, worn linoleum, metal chairs. I filed a formal complaint. Theft of property at the airport, stolen passport, wallet, phone, missing valuables from home. The officer typing my report was young, maybe late 20s. "The suspect is your son?" she asked. "Yes." "And he lives with you?" "In my house." "The one he's trying to take?" She looked up at that, expression shifting slightly. "This is a civil issue, sir. We can log the theft of physical items, but property disputes are handled in court." I kept my tone calm. "The theft happened in Mexico International. The items have serial numbers." "That's criminal." She nodded and typed faster. I gave her the details, the watch, the camera, both documented for insurance. The silver service, worth around $3,500. 90 minutes later, she handed me a case number. "Someone will follow up," she said, her voice polite but distant. Back at Margaret's office, I watched her finish the paperwork, typing, printing, signing, stapling. The top page read, "Motion to invalidate deed of gift based on fraud and undue influence." She added a note at the top, "Request for expedited hearing due to ongoing living situation dispute." "Your son will be served these papers," she said, looking up. "He'll know you're back. He'll know you're fighting." "Good," I said. "I want him to know." That evening, a locksmith arrived, a middle-aged man named Frank. Professional, quick, efficient. "These are good locks," he said, examining the old ones. "Why the change?" "Security upgrade," I replied. He nodded and got to work. "Front door, back door, garage." When he finished, he held out 3 new sets of keys. "The old ones won't work anymore. These are pick-resistant. Solid protection." "Perfect," I said. "That's exactly what I wanted." I paid him $340 without hesitation. Worth every cent. After he left, I went room to room, testing every lock, turning each key twice. Solid. Secure. My home again. I hid 1 spare set in a new place, kept 1 in my pocket, and left the 3rd on my desk. Then I made small changes, moved the couch a few inches, rotated the dining chairs, shifted a lamp. Subtle, but symbolic. I was reclaiming the space. As night fell over Capitol Hill, I stood by the front window, watching the streetlights flicker on. For the first time in weeks, The house didn't feel like a memory. It felt like mine again. New locks clicked securely behind me. Legal documents filed. Police reports submitted. My house, my fortress, my battleground. Across the street, lights flickered on in neighbors' homes. Normal lives, quietly unfolding. Mine hadn't been normal since the airport. Maybe it never would be again. The new phone I'd bought sat silent on the coffee table. No calls. Rodney didn't know this number. He thought his father was still in Mexico, helpless, abandoned. He was wrong. 6:47 p.m. 8:47 in Denver. Was Rodney having dinner at some hotel, planning his next move? The uncertainty should have bothered me. It didn't. I had already taken control, changed the playing field. When Rodney came back, everything would be different. I went to the kitchen. The refrigerator was nearly empty, just condiments and expired milk. Tomorrow I'd restock, rebuild. Tonight, instant coffee and frozen bread would do. Cup in hand, I returned to the window. The street was quiet. No headlights. No movement. I sipped my coffee and waited for the confrontation I knew was coming. 2 days passed. I spent them preparing. Documents stacked neatly on the coffee table. New keys in my pocket. Phone charged, recording app tested and ready. I moved through the house like a general, inspecting his defenses, checking windows, testing locks, claiming territory. Late on the second afternoon, I heard a car door slam. I went to the window and parted the curtain an inch. Rodney's silver Honda sat in my driveway. He stood beside it, staring at the house. Even from a distance, I could see confusion clouding his face. Cora stepped out from the passenger side, looked toward the front door, and whispered something I couldn't hear. I let the curtain fall, counted to 5, waited for a knock. Instead, I heard a key scrape in the lock. Once, twice, harder. The old key, useless now. Rodney cursed under his breath. Cora's voice cut through the silence. What's wrong? Lock's jammed or something. More scraping. Metal against metal. Then silence. Footsteps circled the house, trying the back door. Same result. More confusion, muffled through the walls. They came back to the front porch. Call him, Cora said. He doesn't have his phone. We have his phone, Rodney replied, but tried anyway. Somewhere inside, my old disconnected phone buzzed once, then died. My new phone rang. Unknown number. I answer on the third ring. Yes, Dad. Is that you? It is. Where are you, Rodney? I've been trying to reach you. I'm home, I said calmly. Inside the house. Your keys don't work anymore. Silence. Then his voice, hesitant. What? How did you win? 3 days ago. Come to the front door. We need to talk. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. Rodney looked exhausted. Wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. Cora stood a few steps behind, sharp-eyed and guarded. Rodney tried the concerned son act. Dad, thank God you're safe. We were so worried. What happened at the airport? We looked everywhere. I raised my hand, stopping him cold. I know exactly what happened. You sent me to buy water. Then you flew to Denver with my passport, my phone, my wallet, everything. You left me stranded in Mexico with nothing. His mouth opened, then closed again. No defense. I stepped aside, just enough for him to see the coffee table. Legal documents neatly stacked. I have something to show you, I said. I lifted the top page and held it where he could see the heading. Motion to invalidate deed of gift based on fraud. Rodney's face went pale. That document you told me was a medical directive. It wasn't. It was a property transfer. You stole my house on paper before you abandoned me. Cora's hand tightened on his arm. Her voice turned cold. We need a lawyer. Rodney straightened, trying to regain control. That deed is legal, he said firmly. My lawyer already reviewed it. Your signature was notarized. This house is mine. You're trespassing. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police for unlawful occupation. I didn't move. Go ahead, I said evenly. Seattle Police East Precinct already has my report. Case number 774821. Theft at Puerto Vallarta Airport. Missing items from this house before the trip. A collectible watch, vintage camera, silver service. Your neighbor saw you loading the boxes. His finger froze above the screen. You reported me? He asked quietly. I reported theft. I corrected. The police have your name, your description, your flight details. Call them. See what happens. I showed him my phone, the red recording light glowing. This conversation is being recorded. Washington is a two-party consent state. I'm informing you now. Everything you say is documented. Rodney's phone lowered. Cora leaned in, whispering something urgent. This isn't over, Rodney said. No, I replied. But it's not going the way you planned. They backed off the porch, down the steps, and into their car. Rodney kept looking back, at me, at the house, at what he thought he'd taken. I stayed in the doorway until they were gone. Then I closed the door. The new lock clicked solidly. I leaned against it, breathing slow and steady. For the first time in weeks, the house felt like mine again. First round mine. Through the window, I watched their car disappear down the street. My hands were steady, but my heart pounded, adrenaline finally catching up now that the confrontation was over. I walked through the house, checking every door and window out of habit. All secure. In the kitchen, I filled a glass of water and drank it slowly, standing at the sink. The silence in the house felt heavier than before, like the air was still holding its breath. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel, my neighbor. Saw them arrive and leave. You okay? I typed back. Asterisk fine, thank you. Asterisk. He didn't ask for details, and I didn't offer any. Back in the living room, I gathered the documents from the coffee table, motioned to invalidate police reports, bank notifications, locksmith receipts. A paper trail of resistance. A paper trail of war. Then the phone rang. Margaret Chin's office. I expected her paralegal to ask about the confrontation, but her tone was urgent. Mr. Evans, we've just received notice from opposing counsel. Rodney Evans has retained representation. An attorney named Robert Michaels specializes in property disputes. He's filed a counter-motion asserting the deed's validity and requesting immediate possession pending the court's decision. I sat down slowly. The battle had officially begun. The battle had officially begun. 3 days later, I sat across from Margaret in her office for our first strategy meeting. She slid a thick document across the desk. Michaels is thorough, she said. He's filed for an expedited hearing, claiming you're unlawfully occupying your son's property. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I skimmed the motion, dense legal language, but the message was clear. Rodney was fighting back and hard. Margaret poured herself coffee and gestured to offer me some. I shook my head. He's reframing everything, she continued. You're now the unreasonable parent who changed his mind. Rodney's the victim. He's separating the criminal allegations from the property issue, making it look like you're just using theft claims to undo a gift you regret. I clenched my jaw. That's not what happened. I know, she said, but what you know and what the court believes are different things. Facts matter, but so does presentation. We need direct evidence of fraud at the signing, something that proves you didn't knowingly transfer ownership. She outlined Rodney's strategy. Michaels was arguing the deed was a valid, informed gift, properly executed and notarized. His version? I'd simply changed my mind after a falling out. He wasn't acknowledging the Mexico incident at all. To him, it was a simple property dispute. Nothing criminal. It's smart, Margaret admitted quietly. It simplifies his case. I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. My abandonment recast as a family misunderstanding. My stolen home reduced to a regretted decision. A week after the confrontation, Margaret called with worse news. Rodney's filed an emergency motion for immediate possession, she said. He's claiming he's homeless, living in a hotel while his legal property is being occupied. The motion argues financial hardship, hotel costs, loss of access to his home, irreparable harm. Manipulation, she added. But sometimes judges grant temporary possession when ownership documents look valid. We'll have to counter fast. I authorized another $3,500 retainer. The costs were piling up like water, rising around my ankles. One evening, Daniel mentioned something over the fence. Elton, I don't believe it, but people are talking online. Your daughter-in-law posted something. I didn't have social media, so he showed me on his phone. Cora's post was careful, crafted to sound sympathetic. My husband's father gave us his house, then changed his mind and locked us out. We're homeless while he lives in our legal property. Family shouldn't treat family this way. The comments were a mix, some supportive, others suspicious. Even old friends of mine were asking what had happened. My privacy gone? My reputation under attack. I asked Daniel, should I respond? Explain. He hesitated. Talk to your lawyer first. Anything you post could be used against you. So, I stay silent while she lies. Sometimes silence is stronger than arguing, he said softly. The people who matter will wait for the truth. 2 weeks into the legal battle, Margaret called another meeting, this time about money. She spread papers across her desk, expense projections, fees, retainer updates. Initial retainer, $5,000, she said. Additional filings and discovery, $3,500 already spent. If this goes to full trial, depositions, expert witnesses, court time, you're looking at $40,000 to $60,000 minimum. Maybe more if Michaels drags it out. She looked me in the eye. I need you to understand what you're committing to. This is mortgage money, retirement money. Rodney's betting you'll give up rather than pay. I looked at the numbers. My business sale had left me comfortable, but watching those savings drain felt different, like being robbed again, one invoice at a time. If I settle, I asked quietly, give him something just to walk away? It depends what you offer, she said. But settling rewards theft. And Rodney smells blood now. He might demand more than you think. So, fight or surrender? Margaret nodded. Those are the options in any war. I met with my financial advisor, Patricia, the next morning. She'd managed my retirement for 8 years. She ran the numbers, calm and methodical. $50,000 over 6 months, manageable, she said. $80,000 over a year, painful but survivable. I stared at the projections, the graphs, the shrinking future. The war had begun, and now it was about endurance. Not just who was right, but who could hold out longer. The question, Patricia said carefully, is whether winning is worth the cost, even if you keep the house. I didn't answer right away. Later that night, alone, I decided, yes, it is, 2 weeks later, I got a call from Robert Michaels. The first settlement offer. Mr. Evans, he began smoothly. I'm calling to see if we can resolve this without lengthy litigation. My client is willing to lease the property back to you at a reasonable rate until you find alternative housing. I didn't hesitate. The property is mine. I'm not leasing my own house. The deed says otherwise, he replied, voice cooling. I'm trying to find middle ground here. There is no middle ground between ownership and theft, I said. His tone turned icy. Then we'll see you in court. After that call, I started documenting everything, every detail, every interaction. I created a daily log, calls, texts, expenses, everything related to the house. I organized financial records proving my ownership, took photos of the missing items, and printed every legal document. The guest bedroom became my war room, folders stacked, walls covered with timelines and notes. If this was a battle, information would be my weapon. One night, surrounded by papers, Margaret's projections, Rodney's countermotions, Cora's social media attacks, I felt the weight of it all pressing down. For 5 minutes, I allowed myself to wonder if settling might be easier. Then I remembered the airport, the empty seats, the missing passport, that single $20 bill. The deliberate cruelty of it. The doubt hardened back into resolve. I wasn't giving up. For days after hiring Sarah Chun, the private investigator Margaret recommended, we met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. Sarah preferred it that way for initial findings. She arrived on time, crisp suit, tablet under one arm, manila folder in the other. She ordered black coffee and got straight to the point. Your son is drowning, she said flatly. $47,000 in credit card debt across 6 cards. 3 in collections. 1 facing a lawsuit. He's been dodging calls for months. She turned the tablet toward me. Spreadsheets awash in red. Asterisk overdue. Delinquent. Collections. Asterisk. It started about 18 months ago, she continued. Lifestyle inflation, expensive dinners, designer shopping, vacations. All the things Cora posted online last year. His income couldn't support it. Then came the spiral. Missed payments, interest stacking, predatory balance transfers. 6 months ago, one creditor filed intent to sue. That's probably when he started planning this. I stared at her. So he took my house to pay off his debts. Tried to, she corrected. The trip to Mexico, the abandonment, that was all about securing possession before you could interfere. But I came back early. She nodded. Best decision you made. Another week, and he'd have changed the locks and claimed adverse possession while you were stuck abroad. Then she slid more evidence across the table. Emails, she said. 3 real estate agents, all contacted by Rodney in February. Subject line, property evaluation request. Each email described my house. The agent's replies were attached. $830,000. $865,000. $840,000. He was shopping your house before you even signed anything, she said quietly. Before the Mexico trip. This proves premeditation. I read the emails twice. Cold, deliberate planning. My son had priced my home like a product on a shelf. There's more, Sarah added. This part's legally gray, data broker records. Technically public, but courts might question it. She showed me anyway. Search logs linked to Rodney's IP address, dated January and February. How to convince a parent to transfer property. Deed of gift versus quitclaim deed. Can a property transfer be reversed? What happens if someone abandons an elderly person abroad? That last one, dated February 18th, made my stomach drop. Rodney had been researching abandonment 6 weeks before doing it. 2 days before the preliminary hearing, Margaret reviewed all the evidence in her conference room. The financial desperation gives us motive, she said, organizing the documents. The realtor emails prove premeditation. The search history, powerful, though maybe inadmissible. We'll include it, but Michaels will fight it. She laid out the strategy in order. You'll testify about the signing, she said. Exactly what Rodney told you, how he presented the document, and that you never saw a printed copy. Then we hit them with the planning evidence. We rehearsed for hours. Her paralegal played Michaels in mock cross-examination. Mr. Evans, she said sharply, you signed this document, correct? Yes, but... No, buts. Yes or no? Margaret stopped us. He'll try to trap you in yes or no answers. Don't let him. Judge Morrison allows witnesses to explain, use that. By the end of practice, my answers were sharper. Clear. Controlled. The hearing came on a gray April morning at the King County Courthouse. Department 15. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. Mid-50s, sharp-eyed, known for efficiency and zero tolerance for theatrics. I sat beside Margaret at the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle sat Rodney, Cora, and Robert Michaels. My son wouldn't meet my eyes. The war for truth and my home was about to begin. The courtroom felt colder than I remembered. It was the first time my son and I had been in the same room since that confrontation on the porch. Rodney kept his eyes fixed on the table, refusing to look at me. Margaret began the opening argument with her calm, deliberate tone. Your Honor, this is a case of fraudulent transfer through misrepresentation, an act of elder exploitation and calculated abandonment. Michaels, Rodney's attorney, countered smoothly. This was a valid gift, properly executed. The plaintiff's claims stem from regret, not fraud. Judge Morrison, known for her efficiency and composure, listened without expression. Mr. Evans, she said finally, you'll testify first. I stood, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Margaret led me through my testimony, starting from the beginning, my relationship with Rodney, how I'd allowed him and Cora to live rent-free, and that February afternoon when I signed the document that started it all. What did your son tell you about the document? Margaret asked. He said it was an update to my medical power of attorney, just standard language about healthcare decisions if I became incapacitated. He told me to sign it to keep things current. Did you read it carefully? He showed it to me on his laptop. Small text, scrolling quickly. He said it was all boilerplate legal stuff. I trusted him. He's my son. Michaels rose for cross-examination, sharp and aggressive. But you did sign it, didn't you, Mr. Evans? Yes. You're an educated man, ran a business for decades. Yes. Capable of reading legal documents. Yes. Yet you expect this court to believe you didn't understand what you signed. I held my ground. I understood it was presented to me as a medical directive. I didn't know it was a property transfer until I found the recorded deed weeks later. Michael smirked. Isn't it true you had a disagreement with your son after your trip? There was no disagreement, I said evenly. There was abandonment and theft. Mr. Evans, Judge Morrison interjected. Answer only the question asked. Margaret presented the investigation evidence next. Rodney's financial records showing crushing debt, emails to realtors, and a detailed timeline proving he had planned everything months in advance. Michaels objected repeatedly, claiming irrelevance. This evidence establishes motive for fraud, Your Honor, Margaret countered. It shows this wasn't a gift, it was a desperate scheme. Judge Morrison reviewed the documents silently, then spoke. I'm ordering an expert examination of the signing circumstances. Both parties will provide notary experts. We'll reconvene after the report. The hearing was continued for 6 weeks. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the image of Rodney's face, pale, rigid, his eyes locked on the defense table. He didn't testify, and that was no accident. Michaels knew better than to risk it. When I pulled into my driveway, my phone rang. Daniel, how did it go? He asked. Ongoing, I said. The judge wants more investigation. That's good, right? She's taking it seriously. Yes, I sighed. But serious doesn't mean fast. Inside, I found a voicemail from Margaret. Her tone was calm, but intrigued. Call me when you can. There's a development in the case. Not urgent, but interesting. When I returned her call, she explained, Michaels had filed a motion for a psychological evaluation, claiming my age and possible cognitive decline affected my understanding of what I'd signed. A week later, I was sitting in Dr. Rachel Foster's office for a court-ordered assessment. This evaluation was requested by opposing counsel, she said professionally. They're suggesting cognitive impairment may have affected your ability to understand legal documents. I'll be testing memory, comprehension, and decision-making capacity. I knew what it meant. Rodney's lawyer was trying to paint me as senile. Let's begin, Dr. Foster said. For 2 hours, I completed tests, memory recall, logical reasoning, problem-solving. She read out a list of 10 words. Hospital, television, curtain, flower, envelope, sidewalk, piano, thunder, basket, mirror. I repeated them all, in order. Excellent recall, she said. Now tell me about a significant decision you made recently. I described selling my business, a supply company I had built over 30 years. I explained how I analyzed offers, weighed employee impact, and sold for $320,000 after taxes. She smiled faintly, taking notes. Detailed memory, clear reasoning. That's good. A week later, Margaret called. Dr. Foster's report came in. You're officially mentally competent. She read excerpts. Subject demonstrates intact memory function, normal cognitive processing for age, clear decision-making capacity, and full ability to understand legal documents. Michaels tried to make you look like a confused old man, she said. This destroys that narrative. That same day, Sarah Chun called with another breakthrough. Found your notary, Frank Morrison. Freelance, works from home. I did an informal interview. Turns out Rodney paid him $300 cash to notarize your signature at a Starbucks. Not at your house. Not at his office. My stomach tightened. Sarah continued. Frank admitted he felt uneasy but needed the money. That's a clear violation of notary protocols. 3 days later, Margaret and I met Frank in person. Nervous, mid-40s, thinning hair, he looked ashamed. I shouldn't have done it that way, he confessed. Rodney told me you were too ill to travel and needed it signed quickly. He paid in cash. I went along with it. He paused, eyes downcast. But when I met you, you looked perfectly healthy. You walked in fine, ordered your own coffee. I knew something was off, but I notarized anyway. I needed the work. He shifted uncomfortably, guilt written all over his face. And in that moment, I realized Rodney hadn't just betrayed me as a son. He'd corrupted everyone around him to make it happen. Margaret drafted Frank Morrison's statement with her usual precision. I, Frank Morrison, licensed notary public in the state of Washington, hereby attest that the document in question was signed at a Starbucks coffee shop, not a proper office. I received a cash payment of $300 from Rodney Evans, who insisted the signing be done quickly. He claimed his father was too ill to travel. These circumstances violated notary protocol and professional ethics. When she finished, Margaret looked up. "You understand this will likely end your notary career, Frank?" He nodded solemnly. "I understand. But what I did was wrong. I should have refused." That night, as I was finishing dinner, there was a knock on my door. Daniel stood there, uneasy. "Cora called me," he said. "She asked me to pass a message to you. She said you're not answering Rodney's calls." "I'm not," I replied. "What does she want?" "She's offering a settlement. They'll sign a quitclaim deed, transfer the house back to you legally, in exchange for $200,000. One-time payment. Then it's over." I laughed softly, bitterly. $200,000 for my own home? Daniel shifted awkwardly. "She said to think about it. It would end the legal fight now. No more lawyers. No more court." My answer was immediate. "Tell her no. I'm not paying ransom for something that's already mine." The next morning, I met with Margaret. She wasn't surprised. "They can see the walls closing in," she said. "The psychological evaluation, the notary's statement, the proof of financial motive, all of it is tightening the noose. Cora is smart enough to realize they're losing. That offer is their escape hatch." She leaned forward. "But if we win, you get your home free and clear. No settlement. No compromise." "Then we fight," I said firmly. Sarah Chun soon delivered her final report. A thick, meticulously organized document tying every thread together. It cost me $2,000, but it was worth every cent. Margaret filed it immediately as supplemental evidence. "This," she said, sliding the file into her briefcase, "will devastate their case." 3 weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and preparation. My legal costs had climbed to $17,000. The process felt endless, until Margaret called one evening, her voice tight with urgency. "Judge Morrison just moved up our hearing 2 days from now." 2 days? I asked. "Is that good or bad?" "Unknown," she said. "But judges don't expedite cases they plan to dismiss." She's seen something. Be ready. This might end soon, one way or another. The courtroom was tense the morning of the hearing. "All rise," the bailiff called. We stood as Judge Morrison entered and took her seat. "This hearing concerns the motion to invalidate the deed of gift based on fraud," she said. "Mr. Michaels, you may begin." Michaels stood confidently, his voice steady and rehearsed. "Your Honor, this is a simple case. An adult son and his aging father discussed estate planning. The father willingly signed a deed of gift, properly notarized. Now, after a family disagreement, he claims fraud. Financial troubles, pre-planning, family disputes. None of that invalidates a legitimate document. The deed stands on its legal merit." He sat down, satisfied. Then Margaret rose. Calm, collected, surgical. "Your Honor, the notary's sworn statement details multiple violations that render the notarization invalid. The signing took place at a Starbucks. Mr. Morrison was paid $300 in cash, 12 times the standard rate. He was told Mr. Evans was too ill to travel, which was demonstrably false." She picked up another exhibit. In addition, the defendant contacted 3 real estate agents weeks before the signing, requesting property valuations. He was pricing the house like merchandise before his father signed a single document. That is not estate planning. That is theft planning. Judge Morrison leaned forward. "Mr. Michaels, how do you explain your client paying 12 times the normal notary fee for such an irregular procedure?" Michaels hesitated. "Perhaps he wanted to accommodate his father's schedule, Your Honor." The fee reflected convenience. The judge's expression made her disbelief clear. "False statements about mobility?" she pressed. Michaels adjusted his papers. "I need to confirm those details with my client." Morrison turned to Margaret. "Fraud is a difficult standard, Ms. Rose. Can you prove your client was actively deceived about what he signed?" Margaret nodded confidently. "The notary will testify that Mr. Evans was never told the document's true nature. The defendant rushed the process, controlled the presentation, and never provided a signed copy for review." Michaels called Rodney to the stand, a risky move, but one he must have felt was necessary. Under direct questioning, Rodney kept his composure. I showed my father the document, he said. I explained that it transferred the house to me. He understood. He wanted me to have security. Margaret's cross-examination cut through him like a scalpel. You told the notary your father had mobility issues? I said he preferred not to travel that day. Did he have mobility issues? Yes or no? No. You paid $300 cash for notarization? I want a quality service. Did you tell your father this document was a medical power of attorney? Rodney hesitated too long. I may have mentioned medical planning. May have or did. It was part of a broader discussion. You're not answering the question, Mr. Evans. His voice faltered. His hands fidgeted. Every tell was visible. Eyes darting toward his lawyer, fingers brushing his nose, voice cracking under pressure. He was unraveling. Then Judge Morrison called for a brief recess. During the break, Margaret received a call. She immediately approached the bench and spoke quietly with the judge and Michaels. When she returned, her eyes were sharp. The police executed a search warrant on a storage unit rented in Rodney's name, she whispered. They found your watch, your camera, the silver service, everything you reported stolen. Relief and anger hit me at once. Physical proof. When court reconvened, Judge Morrison's tone was crisp. I've been informed that items reported stolen from the plaintiff's residence have been recovered from a storage unit registered to the defendant. This introduces a criminal element to what was previously a civil matter. The case will be referred for prosecution. Rodney's face drained of color. Cora grabbed his arm, whispering frantically. Michaels argued for a sidebar, but Morrison shook her head firmly. When they returned to their seats, Michaels looked defeated. Rodney slumped in his chair, head bowed, the posture of a man who knew it was over. Judge Morrison didn't hesitate. Based on the evidence presented, she said, this court finds, by preponderance of evidence, that the deed of gift was obtained through fraudulent misrepresentation. Her gavel struck once, and just like that, the house, the life Rodney had tried to steal was mine again. The notarization violated standard protocols. The defendant's testimony contained material inconsistencies. She paused. The pattern of premeditation, combined with subsequent abandonment in Mexico and theft of property, establishes an intentional scheme rather than a legitimate gift. The deed is hereby declared null and void. Title remains with plaintiff Alton Evans. All stolen property must be returned within 48 hours. I'm referring criminal matters to the King County Prosecutor's Office for potential charges. The gavel fell. Case decided. I drove home in the afternoon sun. The house was mine again, legally, officially, permanently. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment. Same house I returned to weeks ago after Mexico, but it felt different now. Vindicated. Protected. Mine. I stepped out, walked to the front door, and inserted my new key, the one Rodney couldn't use. Turned it. Stepped inside. The house smelled like home. Not triumph, just home. Through the window, I saw Daniel's porch light on. I walked over and knocked. He opened the door, saw my face, and understood immediately. You won. I won. We sat on his porch, drinking the whiskey Daniel saves for special occasions. Talked about baseball, his garden plans, the neighborhood. Normal conversation. After months of abnormal, normal felt extraordinary. Later, I walked home under the streetlights, locked my door, and stood in the quiet of my living room. Tomorrow would bring the aftermath. Tonight, just peace. 2 days after the ruling, I went to the Seattle Police Evidence Facility to collect my stolen items. Sterile government building, fluorescent lights, bureaucratic forms. An officer brought out a plastic bin labeled with my case number. Inside, my grandfather's Omega watch, scratched but running. The Leica camera, its leather case worn but intact. Silver service wrapped in evidence bags, tarnished but restorable. I signed the release and carried the bin to my car carefully, as if it were something fragile. At home, I unwrapped each item. The watch first. Wound it. Listened to the steady tick resume. Set the correct time. Placed it on my dresser where it always lived. The camera next. Checked the shutter. Still worked. Returned it to the study shelf. The silver service took longer. An evening of careful polishing, methodical work. Each piece cleaned was a piece of my life restored. Margaret called with news. Morrison issued the judgment order. Rodney and Cora are jointly liable for $15,000. Reimbursement, emotional damages, and theft compensation. Can they pay? Her laugh was humorless. They can't pay their current debts. But it's on their record. Permanently. I didn't need the money. I wanted the accountability. 2 weeks later, the prosecutor's office called. Assistant Prosecutor James Riley sounded young, overworked. Mr. Evans, we're offering your son a plea deal, guilty to theft and attempted fraud. 2 years probation, restitution, community service. No jail time, given no prior record. Conviction stays permanent. I don't want revenge, I said. I want accountability. If probation achieves that, accept it. He sounded relieved. Thank you. Most victims push for maximum punishment. Proportional, I said. The word felt right. Later, I met with my estate attorney, Richard Taft. You want to ensure your son can never inherit the property? I nodded. Never. Not if I die tomorrow. Not if I die in 30 years. Richard drafted the new will. Clear language. I explicitly disinherit my son, Rodney Evans, from any claim to my estate. Upon my death, my house shall transfer to the Seattle Housing Foundation for Low-Income Elderly Housing. I signed it and felt an unexpected peace. My son tried to take everything. Now he gets nothing, not as punishment, but as protection. Margaret dropped off her final bill in person. $19,500 total, she said. I reduced my rate the last month. I wrote the check without hesitation. You saved my home, and probably my sanity. Worth every penny. She smiled slightly. Most clients complain about legal fees. Most clients don't have sons who try to steal their homes. Early August. Warm Seattle evening. I sat on the porch with iced tea and a newspaper. Down the street, a moving truck backed into the apartment complex. I watched curiosity at first, then recognition. Rodney, carrying boxes. Cora, directing movers with sharp gestures. Eviction. Couldn't afford rent anymore. I stayed on my porch, half hidden behind the rose bushes, watching my son's life collapse into cardboard boxes. He looked thinner, older, defeated. He loaded boxes mechanically. Cora didn't help. When the last one was in, she climbed into the passenger seat. He started the truck, drove away, gone. I sat in silence, processing what I just witnessed. I won. Justice happened. My son was destroyed. None of it felt good. It just felt done. Later, Daniel came over. That was them, wasn't it? Yeah. Evicted. How do you feel? Empty. Not happy, not sad, just empty. You won. That's supposed to feel good. Winning meant my son lost everything. That's not victory. That's survival. He nodded. Sometimes survival's the only victory available. September approached. Summer fading. My house stood steady on its Capitol Hill foundation, legally and emotionally mine. The garden needed tending. I spent a Saturday weeding, planting fall bulbs, preparing for next season. Daniel helped. 2 men working in quiet companionship. Afterward, we drank beer on the porch, watching dusk settle. You ever think about selling? Moving somewhere easier? He asked. I thought about it. This house almost got stolen from me. Now that I've fought to keep it, I'm not leaving. Fair enough, he said. My phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. Probably nothing important. My life was finally simple again. No lawyers. No courts. No betrayals. Just life. The street stayed quiet. The house stood. I remained on my porch, at peace with the simple victory of having survived someone else's greed. Justice isn't always satisfying, but it's always necessary. I learned that these past months, at great cost. Was it worth it? I looked at my house, the pale blue paint, white trim, the garden I tended. My house. My life. My terms. Yes, it was worth it. Some things can't be priced. Some things must be defended. And some victories, even when they hurt, are still victories worth winning.